Today's podcast is sponsored by Kauri. That's KAURIWINE.com, just like the native New Zealand would. Please go to kauriwine.com and click on either New Zealand or Australia and find out why they specialize in organic yeast and nutrients. They're also there for your any little needs you help in the cellar. They got some free videos up on YouTube. And these are really great for professionals and for amateurs. You guys who are dipping your toe in some home winemaking maybe. But also some really important stuff like fixing barrel repairs, how to test for MLF viability and things like that. So just visit their YouTube page, which is just Kauri Wine on YouTube. And again, visit kauriwine.com. That's KAURI wine.com. Just pick either New Zealand or Australia and you're on your way. We're also sponsored by Decibel Wines. The Testify is out and it's going. We a bit less than last week. That been helped out by a few more restaurants and wine shop orders, and a few people from the U.S. have started to order, which has been great. Great to get that wine over there ahead of any distribution shipments, which will be very, very minimal. Probably won't make it outside of Manhattan, maybe a few cases to Philly. So hop on that, guys. But for you, the difference is you use the promo code DBPodcast up on decibelwines.com, and you get 10% off your first order. So just go to decibelwines.com and click on your flag for your country. We're delivering all over the world now. So that's New Zealand, Australia, the US, EU. That's all over the EU, Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, and of course the UK. Brexiters, don't fear, I can still ship you wine. Just visit decibelwines.com and shop Decibel Wines. We're real excited about this, guys. The Testify's gone really well, and people are digging it. So pretty easy. Okay, take it away, Willie D. G'day, mate. As we continue with our little mini-series with this season within a season of Vintage Stories, the 3 episodes I recorded in Australia, except this episode I tagged on a little extra because it's sort of a vermouth episode. I had this one sort of 20-minute conversation with Chris Reid in the can I was waiting to use, just wasn't quite a long enough one to do a whole episode with, but I wanted to check in with what was up with Chris. For any of you guys who can go all the way back to episode 1, you can hear Chris Reid's whole story. But first, we start off with a great conversation with Rebecca Lines. Yes, Rebecca Lines. And Hamish Ingham, who own Banksii and Barangaroo, which is very sort of corporate, new area, but also really cool. Tons of great restaurants. Right on the water, there's boats, it's gorgeous, it's an awesome spot, and those guys have owned restaurants all over Sydney for years. This is their latest venture, a very exciting spot. It was booming. We went back in for lunch. Lunch was picking up as I left after recording this podcast. I went back in for dinner the following night, and it was just packed. We talk a lot about the vermouth scene and how Rebecca's excited about that. We also talk a lot about Australian food, beef, things like that with Hamish, who is clearly great at what he does. I saw him in action when I popped by on Wednesday night. And yeah, exciting place. We talk about Sydney a lot and the history of Sydney. Like any great city, it's a place that's evolving constantly. I'm sure if you talk to people, including my partner who lived there a while ago, she'll say, oh, it's not like it used to be. And I'm sure people there who live there now will say 10 years from now that it's not like it used to be. So like any great city, it's ever evolving, changing, booming international immigrants. People have lived there a long time. It's got great history. It's really, really vibrant, great place to visit. And so it was great to be able to record these 3 podcasts there. And I really appreciate Rebecca and Hamish for doing this and taking time out of their day. You'll notice the sound is, there's a hum in the background basically of the restaurant just getting going for lunch service. So they took time out of their morning getting ready to have a chat with me. So 40 minutes was great that they were able to give me that 40 minutes. So I really appreciate that. And another reason why it was an opportunity to stick on this extra 20 minutes with Chris Reid on the end. And they sort of, everybody's talking about vermouth. So it's the hip new thing, guys. Go out and get a vermouth and tonic or a vermouth and soda or a Negroni or something at the end. Not that Negroni's the hippest new thing, but there's a lot of craft gin and a lot of craft vermouth out these days. Go out and start exploring, especially if you're a winemaker. Those things are, particularly vermouth, is tied into what we do. I'm surprised there isn't more New Zealand vermouths. So anyway, this is my conversation with Rebecca and Hamish, and I'll check back in with you guys in a second. That'll lead to my first question. Where is Mount
Gambier. So it's on the Great Australian Bight, which is in South Australia. So it's kind of which we call the Great Australian Bight. Looks like a shark spitting some of Australia.
Oh yeah, sure.
So that's where I'm from. I was born there, and then I basically lived in Sydney all my life.
Yeah.
So
got tired of the.
Well, I moved when I was about 2, I believe. So I was just born there. Then my family relocated to Sydney. Yep. I grew up in Sydney, so you can say I'm a Sydney boy.
And you're an Auckland gal?
I am an Auckland girl, although I probably wouldn't call myself an Auckland girl now.
Yeah.
I feel probably more at home here.
How long have you been in Sydney?
15 years, I think. About 15 years. 14 years, 2004 I arrived. So. Yeah,
and I kind of just read on the website quickly that you're sort of been working in the industry for a while here in Sydney, and is that correct?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've been in hospitality since I was 18, 17 actually, sneakily. I wasn't really supposed to be working.
I did a bit of that myself.
Exactly. And we, Hamish and I met at a restaurant that he was the chef at. And then, a year later we had a child.
Yeah. Things work that way
exactly.
sometimes. And, so this is pretty cool because I get to walk into this completely innocent and naive, and then I walk in this amazing location you have here. And
it's a pretty amazing location.
I didn't have time to get intimidated, and like, wow, this place is awesome. But how long was it a dream to have a vermouth bar? I mean, that's kind of how it's marketed, right?
Yeah. It wasn't really a dream. We kind of got this site, and I don't know, it just
we had to decide what to do with
fell
it.
into place, really.
Yeah.
I think I'd been making cocktails for quite some time, and there was a lot of Australian vermouths kind of happening, so bespoke kind of, vermouth, and I kept looking. And
gin as well, too?
Yeah, but it was really, I think, gin was very popular, and everyone knows what that is, but I think I kept seeing these really great vermouth, and even out of America and stuff, and no one was using them. Like, no one was serving them like they should be served, which is just neat or on ice.
Yeah.
So I kept kind of using them, going, I don't understand why we're not just drinking these instead of mixing them away into another drink.
I've been drinking a lot lately because that Pinot that I gave you from Martinborough, my buddy makes some vermouth out of Martinborough.
Oh, okay.
Called Reid and Reid. He makes some gin as well. I think he's in Australia, but
yeah, right.
We'll have to. Maybe I should have brought a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, why'd you bring me the vermouth?
But he's just made a red vermouth as well.
Yes.
And that's like just flew out the door because Negroni and everything.
Yeah, that's right. So. Is it becoming popular in New Zealand?
Yeah, he's doing. I think his business is doing really well,
yeah.
and it's really on an uptick. And he's actually now with the same distributor as me, so in New Zealand, and I think he goes to the UK and Japan and Australia as well. But it's. I would say you guys are really lucky. Sydney and Australia overall reminds me a little more of not even parts of America, mostly. San Francisco, New York, and very uptrend and very progressive, and certainly Manhattan competes with that. Parts of Philadelphia and Boston, there's pockets, and you'd be surprised. Charleston, South Carolina, and places are their pockets, but I think Australia overall is way ahead on the curve of
Right.
Wines. The rosé thing happened here way before everywhere else. It's just the trends seem to be so. New Zealand is a little farther behind.
Yeah, I did get a feel of the New Zealand winemakers. I was like, you need to make vermouth.
Yeah,
I'm like, because it will happen in New
yeah.
Zealand, and it's happened here. I'm like, you need to get them into bars now.
Yeah, so he's on that the head of that curve with it, and in fact, he has his own Pinot vineyard that he makes some of the red vermouth from.
Yes.
But he doesn't have any white fruit, so I was thinking, oh, maybe I can help you out there, buddy.
Exactly.
Without creating another wine, because I tend to get a little carried away, and I've got, I think, 7 wines now. And
wow.
So that's a little bit too much. Though it's all really small production. But anyway, so how long have you guys been open here?
2 years.
2 years this October.
And the food concept?
The food concept is modern Australian with a Mediterranean botanical influence. So taking
keeps
all the
things
botanicals,
challenging for you?
Yeah, taking all the botanicals which are in vermouth essentially, and trying to use native Australian botanicals, which we have an abundance of here.
Sure.
Which is amazing. Yeah.
And obviously,
vermouth goes with food. Mussels and vermouth is a classic
Yeah.
French dish, so there's plenty to work with. Vermouth and oysters is another classic.
Sure.
So
And cocktails as well.
Exactly.
And looks like a few wines are here as well.
Yep.
Yeah. It's, about 180, I think. It's not massive, but
Having worked in the industry for a long time, it's got to be pretty awesome to be like, oh, now I get to choose everything I want and kind of design it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, we had a restaurant before this as well, so we have had and we've consulted for a hotel group as well. So I guess we've had three
restaurants.
Restaurants.
And currently just this one, though?
Currently just this one.
All the focus is here?
Yeah.
Looks like it'll keep you busy.
It is, yeah. It's a bit of a machine. So it's officially 206 seats, but a lot of those are drinking seats. So it can get pretty busy down here. It's a very busy area. It's a very new area. Do you know the area in terms of it used to just be nothing here?
How long ago was nothing here?
It would have been 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 to 5 years ago. There was basically used to be
I did a quick trip to Sydney 8 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 years ago, and then I've only in the last year or so have I come back, but I have noticed, just building up around.
So this was all just docklands, like shipping containers.
What do we need that stuff for?
It's been moved to more Botany way, which is near the airport.
Yeah.
So this is all reclaimed land. So basically, we're sitting on the water right now. It used to be 100, 150 meters back.
And you didn't have an earthquake like we had in Napier to reclaim land.
No. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we'll just touch wood on that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
maybe a wrong analogy to use there. And so you said year? How long?
2 years.
2 years.
October. We pretty much everything around here opened 2 years ago. So this waterfront strip of restaurants along the strip here all opened around October. The towers have same thing. Those 3 towers up there. There's about 30,000 people.
It's convenient.
Working in there. So so it's a pretty busy area. The ferries as well. The ferries opened up about last year.
I think I came in on one of those ferries in November.
Yes.
Yeah. I came in and they come in from North Sydney?
Yeah, they come
correct.
from North Sydney.
So I came in from North Sydney, and I was a little surprised with how many waves there were.
On a rough choppy day.
Holy cow! I was
looking
around. I was like, "Is this normal, guys?" And luckily I didn't have much to eat or anything. But it was, and so actually I did come up through here and met a friend and went out on the town.
It's a very beautiful ferry ride.
It was gorgeous, but it was like
you obviously weren't on a great day.
No, it was pretty random. Everybody on the boat was pretty like, But I guess you might be ready for a drink when you come off of one of those.
Yeah, exactly. No, on a beautiful day, it's a really lovely ferry ride. It literally goes out past, Luna Park under the harbour bridge, and you've got the Sydney Opera House, and it's a pretty magical ferry ride.
So my partner lived here for about 4 years, and obviously now we live in Hawke's Bay. We came back to visit a bunch of her friends, I think it was about 2 years ago, and all the King's Cross legal stuff was going on, and it was a little bit of a shake and settle for the industry and everything. It seemed to me at that time it was a bit of a reset, and like there was not the greatest feeling going on then, and everybody didn't know what to do. But I was like, well, I think you guys are going to be okay. But
well, unfortunately,
King's Cross is pretty much dead.
It is dead. Unfortunately,
it's finished.
Yeah.
Essentially,
So what happened there? Let's give me the shortish, longish story.
It's lockout laws. So the lockout laws came into place, which is 1:30. You can't. It's locked out or locked in, but strangely, you can't drink though.
Can't drink out in the street. Is that what used to?
You can't.
So
drink.
what used to happen?
There's nothing. You couldn't. There was just. There's nothing open. Essentially, they decided it was like right 1:30. That's it. You get locked out.
How bad did it get? What was going on?
It has
started
killed.
It started from one incident which we call the coward punch essentially. So there was where was it? I think it was in King's Cross.
There was one in King's Cross. Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's ridiculous because that happened at 9 p.m. That wasn't, you know what I mean? And he wasn't in any of the clubs anyway. So.
But what? It was like a big brawl or something?
No, it was just a one punch. So the guy died. He did die. But it was it kind of
last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, I think they were
basically.
making an example of that, and
they were looking for an excuse to
shut down King's Cross, I think.
It's like
and redevelop it.
Like Midtown Manhattan used to be when I was a kid. Like it was all strip joints and really rough and scary. And like that's where you copped your drugs and everything, and then you go there now and it's Disney World. It's so I wonder.
Essentially they're trying to
and they'll
trying to do the same.
It's quite sad, really. It's like people come to see King's Cross, and now you go, don't go to King's Cross. There's nothing there.
Well, the next area is Potts Point, where there's a vibrant restaurant scene, so that it's kind of trying to make the whole.
But that was a bit
area
more rough tumble, kind of fun
originally
bar hopping.
Originally,
Originally it was,
Now it's not.
No, that's what I mean. I know it's all changed, but that sort of had. Reverberations for the industry, you think, as well?
A lot of places shut down.
Yeah.
So, and then now you've got government going, like, trying to get people to stay open late, because it really did kill the night economy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy move. It's like, it's Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. You're in the city.
Have a night economy.
Anywhere else in the world you can go out.
Yeah, well, that's
and get a meal, get at 11, 12, 1, get a drink.
4.
Yeah,
exactly.
In New York, that's
you
for sure.
can,
Yeah,
not here, unfortunately.
Yeah, you should come to Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's more like
we have rush hour from 5 to 5:15. Then it gets pretty quiet after that. We always joke around. I pull out. We live on a vineyard, and you pull out, and if there's like my daughter, she's 3. She said it to me the other day. There was 2 cars that went by, and I hear her in her car seat in the back seat. She goes, "Oh, there's a lot of cars." Was that a bird?
It was a bird.
Oh man.
Sorry.
That's
Just
all right.
got such a fright then.
Where was that? Above us?
Yep.
I was trying to get in on the act.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, he was interested. Anyway, we think 3 cars is a lot of traffic where we are. Right. But well, that's good. So, what else?
Three cars here is not traffic. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some sort of study where I think depending on how fast you walk, they can tell how many people live in your city.
Yeah,
right.
And I just realized I needed to raise my game when I got
when
out
you
of
got
there.
here,
I was like kind of moseyed out of the Four Seasons after I set up for the event, and then I was just like, oh shit, I need to step my game up. I was like, people are walking around me and everything. I was like, all right, back into
back
Philly.
into city mode.
Exactly.
and just got my strut on.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also if you stand on the wrong side of the escalator, then
I still do that. I still get on the wrong side of the car sometimes.
Yeah. That's always when you know somebody's not from city. You're like, you're not from the city. That is the fast lane you're in. You're just standing
Get out
there.
of the way.
Exactly.
I heard a couple, the fuck out, and from some of the tradies, yelling at like an Uber driver and stuff.
I know. George Street is so bad
aggressive
right now.
Yeah, especially with all the trams.
It's been going for like 2 years.
Oh,
it
it's
seems
ridiculous.
Like.
Yeah.
It's probably going to go for
It's
another
never
2 years.
What are they actually doing?
I don't know.
Putting in a tram line.
Is that why I saw a poor lonely woman sitting in a booth next to a construction center that said, "Ask me about the tram line."
Oh, exactly.
And I was like,
they're not
and
going
nobody
very
wanted to
fast,
talk to her.
No, exactly. No, it's been going for years.
The slowest tram line.
And I can't see how I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand if they're even working, because it's taken, even in our area in Surrey Hills, there's this one little pocket, like a tiny little piece of it, and it's been going for 2 years, and it's like there's nothing happening.
Yeah. It's like the Big Dig in Boston. I think it was 9 years.
Far out.
And it was just for a highway to basically go kind of under the city. But it's great now.
Yeah.
You know, just took a while.
Yeah.
It took 9 years of traffic. But and what is this technically called, this neighborhood we're in?
So this is Barangaroo.
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 That sounds really Australian.
Yeah, exactly. So Barangaroo, she was the wife of Bennelong.
Yeah, that's right.
The wife of Bennelong. So an Aboriginal gentleman who was very well known. So Bennelong obviously is where the Opera House is.
Mm-hmm.
And she was pretty staunch lady, I believe. So yeah, she's the wife of Bennelong, so it's the area.
They named the area. Are there still new names coming up in Sydney for an area? Seems like there's so much going on.
I don't know that there's too many new areas. Like this is pretty. Like,
well, you said this was reclaimed, but did it have the name before it was reclaimed?
To be honest.
No,
do you know what it was called?
Would have been part of Bennelong, really, wouldn't it? It was part of the city, so it was Sydney CBD.
Yeah, I don't know.
It didn't actually have a name, no.
Yeah. Well,
it's literally
you guys are cutting edge.
I know. I know.
Exactly.
We're in the part. Actually, interestingly, people still don't really know the area well.
Yeah.
So they do connect it to the casino.
It had some bad press in the beginning. Yeah.
This tower.
Yes, which has not actually happened yet.
It's not built for another 6 years, which is down further. But there's a lot of hoo-ha in the beginning that there's going to be this huge casino there. It's actually a hotel with a high roller room on top. So there's a lot of bad press around that and what they were trying to do down there, and everyone associates Barangaroo with the casino. And it's slowly
so it's up
changing.
to you guys to change that.
Yeah, it is changing.
It's
definitely.
changing,
Yeah,
definitely.
100%.
But
Yes.
I regularly people would even say, oh, so does the casino own your place? And I'm like, what? No, it's not even a casino yet.
Yeah.
So there was definitely, they don't realise how big the area is.
Yeah.
And this is actually Barangaroo South. So there's
wow.
Exactly. So there's the headlands, which is Barangaroo Headlands, and then you've got I think the Barangaroo Central, which is where this hotel and high roller casino is going, and then this is Barangaroo South. So people definitely thought it was quite a small area, and that it was just
one building essentially.
Yeah, like a casino happening, but they're starting to see actually it's
more
just a
than
new
that.
part of the city. Yeah.
And what's going on as far as you guys been working in the industry for quite a while, as far as the big trends in the city, and I mean, again, I'm coming at this pretty innocent. I just see, it seems thriving and exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still
both food-wise and drink-wise.
Yes. There's still there's the things rapidly opening
and rapidly
closing.
Well, yeah.
So I think it's not an easy time for the industry, but at the same time, we've probably got more than we've ever had.
Yeah.
And lots of sort of different style.
Well, the Sydney CBD
well.
is kind of changing as well. It used to be kind of quite dead at night time, and it was all the surrounding suburbs that were vibrant with the small little restaurants that you could go to. And now it's kind of totally the opposite. It's changed. The CBD is kind of vibrant again, and all the suburbs are kind of losing
Quiet
their
again,
mojo. Yeah. So Melbourne, I love going to Melbourne because it's kind of, you go into the CBD, the drinks open, it's vibrant, and Sydney never used to have that, and now I believe it's kind of more like that now.
It happened after global financial crisis. So when global financial crisis happened, what kind of the flow-on effect was that a lot of a lot of fine diners. Sydney was kind of known for fine diners and not much else. And a lot of those fine diners, unless they were at the top of the game, kind of fell by the wayside, and a lot of them closed. And what we saw after that was a lot more casual dining coming up through.
Probably that's a generation thing too.
It's a generation thing as
younger
well.
People, even people that don't necessarily make lots and lots of money like to go out and at least get a drink and then maybe go back to the burbs or whatever.
I think it was sort of always coming. But what did happen is you started to see people gravitate towards the city because that's where kind of money was. in terms of kind of getting that lunch trade and those sorts of things. So you started to see people kind of move to where there was still being money being spent. And so it started to change the city because people started to move, like good restaurants sort of kind of, and casual restaurants and lots of different style of restaurants started to move into the city. So it definitely changed, the city, and it changed. What happened was it then sort of flowed on to where people used to go into sort of some of the suburbs.
That made them raise their game a little bit too, is that?
No, I think it's harder in those areas.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying it's made them raise their game, like they had to get better because people weren't necessarily going back there to just, we'll just go back.
Yeah, there's just not as many. I think it used to be that there'd be areas that were pockets of kind of dining areas, and that's dropped away a little bit now. So with most people kind of heading towards the city. And obviously you still find really great neighbourhood restaurants, but as you say, it's usually like a couple that are really good at what they do in that area.
Nice. And food-wise, when I first moved to New Zealand, and again, they're probably a bit behind on a few things. There was, you say modern Australian. Yeah. I'm assuming at some point, like modern New Zealand, it was a lot of froth and literally foams, and that was sort of. I think I was on the tail end of that.
I think there's less and less of that now. I don't really see much of that anymore at all in Sydney. It's even for a few years more.
Yeah, I would say the same about
a long time,
New Zealand as well. But is there?
I guess here it's kind of about the produce, really.
Yeah,
it's all about the produce and keeping it simple. A lot of restaurants are going for a sharing kind of concept.
Fish, obviously, but
fish. Well, fish is huge in Sydney, Australia, because we have amazing seafood.
Yeah, everybody lives near the water.
Yeah, everyone lives near the water.
Can't live in the middle. So.
Yeah,
we have. Well, that's where we get our meat from.
Yeah,
our kangaroo.
And it's kangaroo, and then
kangaroos,
which I really like actually.
I do too. It's a bit of a hard sell still, I believe. But
a lot of people don't like to eat what's on the coat of arms.
Yeah.
Truly, that's what they say. They say, I can't eat that, it's on the coat of arms. I'm like, well.
Yeah, I guess.
But most kangaroo dishes I've put on, people have enjoyed. They really have. Yeah. I had a raw carpaccio of kangaroo, and that sold really, really well when we first opened.
Yeah, it does.
Do you try to just put roux or something that,
exactly,
try to lure them in a little more easier?
I mean,
or maybe that's too cute, I don't know.
People want to know where it's from, and I guess the kangaroo that I was getting was very sustainable. Each kangaroo was targeted especially for young male kangaroos, and they were all shot in the head, and they were hung by both legs. A lot of the kangaroo for a long time was kind of hung by one leg, and the blood wouldn't come out properly, and they weren't treated properly. But now there's a lot of people are more educated, and you can even track it. Each kangaroo, where it was shot, like the GPS coordinates, who shot it.
And where's the areas mostly that it's coming
mostly from? Kind of the triangle of Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, that little triangle where they all meet. That's a big area for the eastern grey kangaroo.
Yes, it's a certain type of kangaroo as well.
Some you don't want to eat. Huh? There's some you don't want to eat?
Oh, they all have different flavour profiles. Some are tougher than others, but I think the young male is they don't want to shoot the females for obvious reasons. They need to reproduce, but the young males seem to have the best flavour profile.
It's not an easy meat really, because it's very lean. So people kind of like it because it's lean, but at the same time, it's not really a great cooking.
To cook,
well, it has to be very rare.
So it's either
The tail is good for braising. You can braise the tail for a long time. It's kind of like an oxtail almost. That's really beautiful. But all the other cuts you really need to cook it. Rare, or medium rare fish, like venison.
Okay. Well, New Zealand venison's probably about as lean as meat as I had. I got a buddy who's a vineyard manager, lives up the road, who hunts and dives and has crayfish traps. He's a good friend to have.
Wow, he's a great friend to have.
So we just had some backstrap venison the other day, and it was amazing, just rare, just cooked at home, salt, pepper, that was it, Nice. And but so lean, you know what I mean? Like you could see, I tried to cook it a little well for my daughter, but we were
tough.
like, you keep that bit,
Exactly.
And then beef Australian beef is sort of...
It's very, very good. Yeah, there's a lot of good beef coming from Tasmania at the moment.
Okay.
I guess Tasmania is usually all very lush and green.
Yeah.
Most of Australia's in drought right now, so it's pretty
it's pretty
dire.
bad actually.
But Tasmania always escapes that. It does have its dry spells, but it's more like a New Zealand climate.
The Australian dollar isn't, beholden to the dairy industry like it is in New Zealand.
I know, New Zealand is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, if we have droughts, you'll see the New Zealand dollar start to drop because dairy is affected that much, which is really good for somebody who exports wine to other countries.
Yes, yeah.
And we like drought in the wine industry, but we also like our dairy guys to buy our wines too. So there's a fine line.
There's a fine line, exactly.
I'd like to dance that.
No, the drought here is actually really bad at the moment, so it's probably one of the worst.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's one of the worst droughts that they've seen.
It hasn't rained in a lot of areas for 18 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're getting pretty desperate.
It's very desperate. They've, any kind of bore water or anything like that they had has gone pretty much. So it's a pretty tough time for the farmers right now. So in that area, in the areas that
Well, it's kind of New South
Wales.
And it goes up to Queensland as well, which is most affected.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, kind of west New South Wales.
We have some sort of early days of water issues in New Zealand in Hawke's Bay, but
that's
we have
crazy, like
so
New
much
Zealand
water.
living.
No, we have enough, but it's like, there's some conservation orders being put in, and it's a bit controversial, and there's enough water, and water's free, and but it's it's all about fish and game, and they're just lawyered up years ago, and they just got their shit together like amazingly, and they want to. It's sort of ironic in that the people who there's seemingly enough water and enough groundwater, but the people that the wine industry is obviously affected too, but the fish and game is basically millionaires who go trout fishing and stuff, but they got their case is so well put out there, and of course nobody wants to go against the environment, so everybody's like, I think, but do we want to, let's take this slow.
Yeah, right.
And then there's some wine, like the Giblet Gravels, where I get my Malbec from, is very, affected by this one river, the Narroa River. And it's pretty clear that some of the groundwater comes from that river, but but the models are just, they're just models. Like nobody really knows. There's no actual scientific hard evidence of where the water's coming from. But it's scary, but not that scary. Not 18 months of drought scary. Any wine regions affected by that, or?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's
I don't think Hunter would be close.
Yes,
the
Hunter.
closest area.
I always hear it rains a lot in Hunter, though, right?
Yeah,
at least during harvest.
Yeah, exactly. During harvest it rains, exactly.
Ruin everything. No, I don't know. But the closest area would be the Hunter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no real wine regions out that west.
And what are your favorite wines from Australia? Another sort of innocent thing I come at. I'm talking to Mike Benny tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's really good because I am, a bit green to Aussie wine, and I'm looking to be schooled up. I have some big questions for him. But my favorite thing that I've gravitated towards has been Grenache, because I kind of feel like it's hot climate Pinot, and
we're making
sort of
some
edgy
great Grenache. So we've I guess what's happening is we are moving away from the really massive blockbusters that were happening, which obviously Grenache can get very big.
Sure.
Very alcoholic as well. But, when you're looking at some of the styles that are coming out now, they're really fine, light, fresh styles rather than being hit with the, oak and all the rest of it. So there's some delicious Grenache at the moment. A lot out of the Adelaide Hills. Yeah. Adelaide Hills is booming
popular,
right now.
A lot of natural wines are coming out of there.
Yeah, that's been my experience with just friends passing on stuff.
Yeah, and there's some pretty beautiful stuff coming out of there at the moment.
Is Margaret River mostly, to me that comes off as pretty old school? Like,
it's still really old school.
Yeah, but gorgeous and nice producers and everything, but pretty old, not as progressive.
Out of there.
Yeah.
Chardonnay, Cabernet. I actually literally just tried a Semsev this morning from Margaret River, which is still a thing.
It is kind of old school, though, isn't it?
So old school, yeah.
And Semillon, obviously. I've had some 20-year-old Semillons that were gorgeous.
Yeah, amazing from Hunter. Yeah.
But I've also had some 2 or 3-year-old ones where I was like, yeah, that was a bit early.
Yeah, I know. If you ever get to, I've been to a couple of Hunter kind of tastings of like all the fresh Sem, and if you like it's 2 days, and by the end of it you're like, exactly, by the end of it you're like, oh my god, I cannot have any more acid.
Yeah.
But they're making some really, they are making some quite good styles now in terms of a little bit lighter and fresher and kind of approachable in youth, and it, to be drunk young rather than just kind of racy acid that's supposed
Which
to be
is
aged.
kind of weird, because the other thing you think about with Australian wines, the big mocha, sort of heavy and a higher alcohol but really rich big wines of the 90s, I guess. When I mean the Shiraz boom in America was, my family has a little restaurant in Philly, and I swear people just like to say the word.
Yeah.
And it was like, give me one of those Shirazi things, and it was like, you just couldn't get enough of the stuff,
I must say that there is still a demand for it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely. Like, I think, like it's kind of like a pendulum, sometimes you swing too far one way, and same with Chardonnay. It's, for a while, obviously Chardonnay was quite big and flabby for a while, and so the pendulum kind of swung, but it's kind of swung a little bit too far for a while, where it went to quite lean and like really, acid driven and all the rest of it. And I often get asked here, like, I want a Chardonnay, like I want a big
real,
Chardonnay,
a little bit old school, not over the top, but
exactly.
some richness there.
So
what regions are doing the good ones, you think, right now? Or is it more producer, you think?
It's producer, definitely. So depending, but a lot of good wines are coming from Tassie. So a lot of good Pinot or Chardonnay is coming out of Tassie, and they've got some really beautiful. And I guess it's cool climate, but climate change. So it's definitely
cool
changing.
Climate Chardonnay's
yeah,
good.
Exactly. So a lot of people are moving there. But still, Yarra Valley Chardonnay is still really popular. Mornington Peninsula, people love Mornington Peninsula. Like, they will go literally pick a wine because it's from there. It's got a very good name as a region,
I think.
Cool.
Okay.
But like classics as well, even coming out of Margaret River as well. People still really love a WA style.
And the big Barossa wines, is that
big Barossa? Yeah, the Barossa red still definitely. You do get, like, especially here in a business district, you find there's a lot of people who still want that big, rich style of red, which I obviously it's not something I'd gravitate to. I wouldn't drink it. And we had a place that that stylistically those wines didn't really work with our food in our last restaurant. And it's the first thing I noticed when I started here was like, oh my god, I need to get on some big reds. Yeah. And I just didn't have them. Like, it's not something I kind of put on because it's not, something that I would gravitate to.
You got to pivot.
But I literally, like, I think the first week I was like,
call the distributors.
Like, who's got a really big, Yeah, I'll take that one. It's called Black Guts. I'll take it. Yeah.
Cool. I think we'll have to swing back through when you guys are in full motion. I don't want to keep you too long from getting set up, and I got to roll myself. Is there anything else you want to say, mention? Yeah, vermouth.
Drink lots of it.
Drink lots of vermouth.
Yeah.
Oh, and your favorite vermouth producers, right?
Tough call. Professore out of Italy. Their Classico is pretty delicious. Australian. There's obviously a couple. Australian Maiden Eye guys are great. They actually make our house one that we pour from tap, so which is a rosé sort of style. And they're kind of really, I guess they're one of the first as well.
One of the first people.
Yeah, definitely. And it's winemaker background, but also the Regal Rogue guys. So, and very different from Maiden Eye. Regal Rogue is very much like fresh, easy drinking style. Like, it's made for a beautiful hot day. It's not made to be. It's not on ice. It's not meant to be. You're not supposed to kind of smell it and sniff it and think about it.
Yeah,
it's like, no,
soda,
drink it.
Hot day.
Yeah. Whereas a Maiden Eye is a bit more complex. But there's lots of people making them. So nowadays, I see more and more cropping up.
I'm just thinking of people listening. Like, what which did they reach for, grab for? Is it a nice way to start the journey?
People are really interested though. Like people
like the Regal Rogue ones though. I think because they're an easy drinking
style. Yeah.
Introducing them to that style is kind of.
I don't drink a lot of beer anymore, but I'll have a beer after working in the cellar or in the vineyard or something, and then I think it's a great thing to switch and just do a vermouth and soda.
Yeah, no, tonic. V&T is really popular. V&T is very popular.
Yeah.
And it's a great low alcohol version, I guess, of a G&T. So it's a great like lunchtime kind of something. And whenever I go out and I don't want to have too much of anything, like I'll always go, I'll have a V&T.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Martinborough this harvest, and I stayed with the guy Chris, who makes it. And he used to make his own beer and always have cool beers in the house. And then I started coming back and I stayed with him, and he'd be like, no, just gin and tonics, And I'm like, fuck, I'm half in the bag by dinner,
Exactly, which is why the V&T is so good.
Yeah, and then we started switching and drinking more vermouth, because I was like, man, I'm like hungover for the pick in the morning. I'm like, what the hell? But I guess I'm a bit more.
A lot of the low alcohol thing is becoming really popular too. So a lot of people are looking for non-alcoholic or low ABV drinks and cocktails and things.
At least at an entry level, because sometimes G&Ts you put them back on a hot day and
totally.
You're 3 in and you go, what just happened?
Yeah, exactly. I often switch somebody here from going for the G&T. They're like, oh, should I have G&T? I'm like, no, have a V&T. Yeah, you can have 3 of them instead of one.
V&T. Yeah. All right. I'm ready to hit Sydney now.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. It's the V&T. It's very popular.
All right, cool.
So.
Well, thanks for doing this, guys. And
Thank you.
We'll see you later today, and hopefully come back for a drink tonight or tomorrow night.
Yeah, choose one of the 40 different vermouth to...
Oh, that's a challenge.
No.
Or 3 or 4 of the 40 different ones.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks. Cheers. Thank you, Rebecca and Hamish. That was very cool. Like I said, that place is awesome. If you guys are ever in Sydney, go check it out. Lunch, vermouth, tonic. Come on, it's perfect. But like I said, dinner was jamming too when we went in there. You guys were so cool. Let me drop in like that. Never met before. I feel like I got some new friends in Sydney, and I'll definitely be popping in every time I come into that. And thanks for the coffee. For the record, I came back the next night, enjoyed a few of those house vermouths you were talking about. We had a great night and a great conversation in there. Very cool. So next up, we're talking to Chris Reid way back in February, I think it was. Chris is a good old buddy, and this was a good time to catch up to see about him making his booze. But I think the conversation does go into vermouth a bit, because he started then, and he's since released his red vermouth. I went to an event in Wellington a month or 2 ago where he did that. So let's talk to Chris. Tough times in the 80s, the Reagan years. Tough times in New Zealand in the 80s.
Recession in the 80s.
Wow. And look how far you've come.
I know. It's a struggle, but...
we are now live. And look how far you've come since the last time we've talked. I just put Chris Reid -2 here because you're the second time we're actually sitting down.
Was that your first?
I think you were my first. You popped my cherry, Chris.
Great.
And somebody actually the other day, because I do get people occasionally saying, hey, I'm listening to your podcast, and some random wine buyer said to me, oh, I just listened to your first podcast with Chris Reid. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to talk to Chris again soon. And I thought, well, you're up to completely different things now. So
very different.
You're just making a little bit of Pinot now, and it's all gin these days, huh?
Yeah, so we still got the vineyard, but it's pretty small. Turn your phone off, Dan.
Oh my God, I just complained to you about turning yours off. So
but yeah, we set up a distillery by Weyming with my brother Stuart. We set up this distillery. And
where we are right now.
Where we are right now in the sweltering heat.
Yeah, we're you don't think you're always going to come to Martinborough and be in such heat, but
doesn't help being next to a still at
a hot
degrees.
pot still. But yeah, gorgeous day in Martinborough, and you got this great little distillery here right on New York Street, kind of amongst the vines and right in the middle of all this the Pinot tasting rooms and everything.
Yeah.
Can people come by and?
No, sort of health and safety and everything else is just a bit too much.
So if they want to try your wines, they can just go to the many restaurants or try your gin in many restaurants that are pouring it right now.
Yep. Well, we've got distribution throughout the world, not the States, but the UK, Australia, and Japan.
What? Well, let's rewind a bit, man. When did you make the decision? I know you that you've always messed around a little bit with it and had a curiosity, but I can't even think of when you told me you were starting to do some gin, and how far back does it go?
So it started 2013 when I was working in Burgundy, and Stuart, my brother, was working in Edinburgh, and I went over to Scotland and did a few distillery tours with Stuart, and we were sort of looking and thinking, well,
you could do this.
We could do this. Not many people in New Zealand are doing it. So when I returned back to New Zealand, I started working on the distillery building and sort of saving up the money to do it. And it took us a good 2 years before we got all our liquor licenses and all our council approvals. And distilleries are pretty highly regulated.
Yeah.
So
that's funny because in New Zealand you can make your own booze for yourself for personal consumption.
I think we're the only country in the world where you can actually own a still and legally just make your own product. And
you don't have to be a hillbilly up in the mountains making moonshine. You can actually do it legitimately in your backyard or something, but it has to be for personal consumption.
Yeah. So that's sort of how we started. We've always sort of been homestilling since I was even a kid. We've been homestilling.
What did you use to do that? What kind of equipment?
Just a small 20-litre still, or
like a pot still.
Yeah, just a pot still.
Copper
and
pot still.
A condenser. It's usually either a lab condenser or build a condenser out of copper or PVC or whatever you have.
The Kiwi way.
Our new one's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to get a photo of that. I do have one of it somewhere, but I don't know if it had the fancy Reid sign behind it. But I mean, that's a. I mentioned if anybody can come by and check it out because that's such an awesome looking piece of machinery.
It's very nice.
It's gorgeous, man. It's so cool. And when did you? So yeah, after you got back, you saved up some money. When did you get that?
So we got that in 2015. Was when that arrived, mid 2015, and then we started. We didn't actually start releasing the product because we didn't get our license through until start of 2016 was when we first released the product. And from there on we've grown slowly but surely.
And unlike wine, if you grow a little quicker, you can make more.
Exactly. Well, that was sort of the thing for me, is the fact that I, as a winemaker, was the difficult part was I've always wanted to be self-employed and have my own business. And the reality is the expense and the capital cost for a winery and everything else just wasn't obtainable. So the distillery, which actually just started out as a hobby project on the side from winemaking, then actually took over a bit too much time, and then I had to make the choice to kind of do the reversal, where the wine has become more of the hobby and the gin has become the business.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. Which isn't bad.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And how much are you making now?
So our batches, we do about 200 bottles per batch. It's summer in New Zealand at the moment, so we're sort of distilling 3 times a week. And it just fluctuates depending on export orders and.
Yeah. So without getting giving away all your secrets and your botanicals, can you walk me through the process? I have a little bit of knowledge of
Yeah.
distillation, but I mean, just to the average Joe, out there, average Dan.
So gin is essentially the base of a gin is vodka. If you take it down to the fundamental, the simple blocks of the spirit, it's essentially a flavoured vodka. The main flavour in that being juniper berries.
Does it have to have juniper?
It has to have juniper.
Okay.
You cannot call it a gin unless it has juniper berries in it.
Okay.
And then from there on, you can add whatever you want to the gin. Most people, their second ingredient will be coriander seeds. But some people don't use coriander seeds, but generally, as a general rule of thumb, people use coriander seeds as their second. So we have 13 botanicals in total with our gin. We have, see if I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. Put it on the spot.
Juniper, coriander, angelica root, licorice root, orris root, fennel, cassia, nutmeg, cardamom, orange peel.
3 more.
And then 3 other ingredients, which are the most important ones, are manuka, which is a native of New Zealand, kawakawa, which is another native, which is the relative of black pepper, and horopito, which is another pepper bush, which is almost kind of slightly more white pepper, slightly gingery kind of characters to it. So our gin, we sort of tends towards more savoury characters. Most people, when they think of gin, they think of either citrus or really piney, whereas I think where my taste buds lean towards more umami, sort of savoury kind of characters, and that's sort of where we go towards with our gin. Also, that's the botanicals, the New Zealand botanicals, which is very
makes
important.
it distinctive.
Makes it more distinctive and
So,
more savoury.
With that in mind, like, did you have in mind when you started the process that you wanted to, first of all, make it unique to New Zealand, and then how would you decide on 13, the other 10,
Yeah, so our goal to begin with was to make something that was uniquely New Zealand. There are a lot of gins on the market, it's very competitive, and there are a lot of gins that I think taste the same.
Sure.
They're good, but they just taste like gin. We wanted to make something that people go, well, this is actually different. It's still gin, but it is different. So also having that sort of that New Zealand feel about it, and something, I think having that winemaking background, that whole aspect of sense of place has sort of been deeply ingrained in me.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that, with
important.
even the breweries, and going into the spirits now is, the whole thing with, like, I don't know if you know Tito's Vodka out of Texas was like they sort of took the craft wine, craft beer thing and brought it to craft vodka. Now, I don't know how craft it is because I see Tito's in every bar in America. But he's a cool guy from all interviews I've heard with him. So good on him for building a really good business and everything. But that sort of mentality of doing. And now you're doing not just the main Reid and Reid, you're doing a barrel aged.
So we do a barrel aged gin, which is aged in ex-Pinot Noir barrel case.
Same gin or
same gin recipe, but aged for 3 months in oak barrels.
Does that give it a little pink hue, or is that
it's a pink hue, and you also get slightly cranberry, red fruit type of characters from the gin. We don't. It's not very very oaky. I find if it has too much oak, then it'll start lending itself towards more whiskey characters. We still want to keep it fresh and have it as a gin, still recognisable as a gin. But just a little bit more savouriness and a bit more of that sort of vanillin or
vanillin
kind of characters.
Yeah, cool. And any plans to do any other ones, or what could you do of anything without giving away your upcoming marketing ideas?
No, at this stage we're quite happy with the 2 products in terms of...
It's probably keeping you busy enough.
Yeah. It's in terms of our space and everything else. And every so often maybe we'll do a one-off seasonal gin, but at this stage
you're busy enough.
It's too expensive to set up a new product, in terms of
labels everything.
and everything else, and then the marketing and we're still small enough that no one really knows about us anyway. So you put another product in the market. It's
Well, let me assure you, Chris, after this podcast,
viral.
explosion. You're going to be getting orders from all over the world. Certainly from the 17 people listening in Hawke's Bay, you know.
Nice.
So that's how could you grow? And I mean, that's the kind of the issue you have. I would say, you know, I go through with my business is, you know, how do you grow without extending your cash flow and without literally diluting the product and everything. So, you know, phase one is you're in it right now. You're obviously distilling around the clock almost, and you're busy enough. But if you look down, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now, what could you do, or would you have any plans to?
We've sort of, our distillery, I estimate we can do about 30,000 bottles per year. At the moment, we're doing a bit over 10,000 bottles per year. So
just take those busy times into other times of the year.
Yeah, so winter time and stuff like that, you obviously have a bit more of a downtime. So for us, our biggest thing would be storage. So it'd be just looking at our storage options, and then so I think we've probably got a good 2 or 3 years probably in this facility would be my estimate. But you don't know, you know.
I'm with a premium craft gin. Does it go bad at all? Like, you know, outside when it's closed, not after it's opened or anything. Does it?
No. It's pretty stable. Obviously, you know, I think we can all remember trying our grandparents' old bottles of spirits that are 20 odd years old and taste a little bit funny. So that's a good example of when a spirit will go bad. But generally, you've got a pretty good.
If you're storing it correctly and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked behind a bar
you know,
my
you've
whole
got
life.
years. Even if it's open, you'll have.
I've never had I don't think I've ever tasted a gin, but I didn't know a gin or even a vodka or something that went off.
Yeah.
But I just wondered with, you know, all the botanicals and everything, if it would just sort of dumb down over time or anything?
Yeah. So I guess sort of similar to beer and stuff like that. So things like UV can affect different things like terpenes and everything else that's aromatic compounds that are in a gin. So that can.
Would it get any better? Like, would you?
I think with a bit of time, it's sort of like wine. You can have this sort of period of sort of maybe 6 months to a year where it will sort of
hit its stride,
hit its peak, and then it will stay pretty constant for a number of years, and then it will.
Yeah.
But then again, it comes to.
So that's probably promising for production in the sense that, you know, if you see summer coming, you can ramp it up the previous winter, and you know make as much as you want and keep it and that's how you can get your 30,000 bottles and have more of a steady flow than having to distill
it and then send it off. Yeah, no,
all night long.
We try and keep a good amount of stock on hand before, even though that's a bit of a killer on cash flow.
Yeah. So everything's just going directly to trade right now?
Yeah, because of our size and everything, we were doing a few sort of direct sales, but because it's just Stuart and I, in the end we sort of made the call that just going to trade was the
well, they'll love that
option.
You know what I mean? It's like they're gonna have like this exclusivity, and it's a new product, and the packaging's pretty slick on it. So who helps you do that?
So local local couple, they're literally 2 minutes down the road, so they helped us design it, called Dusty and Lulu. Yeah, great people. So
yeah, you found they did a good job.
We try and do everything sort of as local as possible.
Yeah.
We're a small town, so we try and keep things. And
are they involved in like the wine industry or something, or have they done other designs?
They've been designers for years, for decades. So and then moved to Martinborough, I think, a few years back from Wellington, and now
get the talent come over to the Rimatakas.
Yeah.
So in Martinborough these days is there? I don't know. Hawke's Bay to me, I know it's the region's like maybe 100,000 people, but having moved there 10 years ago to now, I think it's like night and day to how much is going on with people moving there and restaurants and events and everything. It was a cool region when I first moved there, but now it's like kind of lulled maybe around 10, 11, 12, but it seems like the last 3 or 4 years it's really picked up some steam. Martinborough's always had Wellington right over the mountains there. Have you seen any? I mean, I know from Megan Wine here, like it's kind of picked up speed again as far as that industry, but tourism, anyway, do you see it picking up more here? Or?
Yeah, well, we're just talking to Clive Payton from Artarangi. He was saying that a lot of the restaurants and bars here have been saying that, like, even winter's been the busiest time they've had. So, yeah, it's certainly picking up.
Because it's not the foods, like, we're really lucky in Hawke's Bay. I mean, we have more hats per capita for, like, Cuisine Magazine than anywhere in the country. So it's sort of a little bit imbalanced as far as, because we get that wine tourism through there. But you get the wine tourism here, and there's only maybe one or two, I don't know, talk fine dining, but like cool restaurants, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty like local pub and cafe kind of stuff. Is there more of that opening here? Or?
There's a few sort of coming up, but yeah, probably we don't really have the population to sustain it like Hawke's Bay does.
Yeah.
We're, I think we're at 2,000 people living within the town, so...
and the tourism just is on
and
weekends.
And the tourism's just the weekend.
And if it's a shitty weekend, nobody's coming over from Wellington and stuff, so...
Yeah, so it's...
So a different game.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it's, like, primed for it, you know what I mean? Like...
Oh, it's a tourist town. It's built around
such
summer and...
Cute town, and...
But there seems to be a lot more sort of new generation sort of coming through. Like
you guys, like you and
like
Holly,
us,
who commute to Wellington and say, forget the, well, she does at least, forget the, I don't know if I was supposed to mention her name on this podcast. Sorry. I might get sued for that, her being a lawyer and all. But I think you're even seeing that in the States too, as people like maybe suburbs, but also like rural areas they're moving to, because the city is like just getting, it's almost like the uncool thing to do, and then in that sense makes it cool.
And it's expensive.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's like an easier decision to do. And if you can find a place like Hawke's Bay or Martinborough where there's actually a little bit of culture and there's some artists and there's some good food and good wines, and it makes it like you're not moving in the middle of nowhere, you know, and it keeps it interesting. You know, I noticed from like Mara's point of view, who's from Italy, and she, you know, the place where she's from is just so rich in culture and stuff to do all the time and history and all that 3 or 4 years ago she was a little frustrated with that in Hawke's Bay, and now it's like we got a lot to do. Like there's actually good music coming through, there's all kinds of events all the time, and it's like you forget, like, and of course having a child keeps you busy too, but it has, you know, there has been an uptick, so I think it's kind of a good time for New Zealand in that sense. But well, that's cool. So no big plans next, just keep making your gin as best you can.
No real big plans. I think we're quite happy with the markets we have. I think most of our time now will be focused on probably a bit more marketing and that sort of side, which is the thing which we haven't had the time to do. So probably doing a bit more in terms of events and promotion. Because obviously when you first start out, you have a bit of a climb because you're new and interesting, and it's just trying to keep that interest, keep people excited about what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, not just putting new products out every week or whatever to try and, but actually sort of be involved in the community and be involved in what's going on.
Yeah, you're always going to have people that are, I mean, my family's had a restaurant in Philly for 25 years or something, and there's still people that walk in and be like, oh, I've lived in this neighborhood and I've never been here before, you know? And you're going to run into that forever, you know? It's just amazing. And now that you're out of the wine industry, do you, or, you know, sort of arm's length from it, I guess, or you're kind of going into the gin, like you said, it's the wine's kind of becoming more of a hobby. You're still working part-time around the corner. Do you see a different perspective than when you were sort of a little more entrenched in it, you know?
Not at this stage, no. I haven't really seen...
you probably always...
I've always liked the wine industry. I've always enjoyed it, so I haven't... I haven't...
Will you have time to even go... You know, you'll harvest your own grapes, but will you help some mates out or anything like that this year?
I think that'll be sort of the plan. If someone needs a hand, then I'll
step in.
And
someone could be on the other microphone right now. We'll see. You know. Well, cool, man. We'll just keep it. I don't know. Anything else you want to tell people about Reid and Reid Gin?
It's delicious.
It's delicious. And where they can find it? A lot of restaurants in Wellington. Who's like the best retailer for them to...
So our main distributor in Wellington is Regional Wines and Spirits, but you can buy it online as well through our website, which sends you through to Glengarry's, but the order comes through to us. So
Yep. That's cool. Well, good luck, buddy.
Cheers, I need it.
Yeah. Cheers. Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Rebecca and Hamish again. So Banksii, Sydney. Their website is very easy. It's banksii.sydney, BANKSII.Sydney. I guess that's a pretty cool new handle they're doing now, .Sydney. And then Banksii Sydney on Facebook and at Banksii Sydney on Instagram. They seem to be pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, so check them out, guys. Go see them when you're in Sydney. Tell them I said hello. And Reid and Reid Gin is up on Instagram. They're always posting stuff at Reid Gin, and you can always see interesting stuff Chris is doing. Take a look at that beautiful, beautiful still they have there. And maybe if you reach out to him, he'll meet up with you in Martinborough if you're passing through. I am at Decibel Dan on most things like Twitter, Instagram, and WeChat as well. Decibel Wines on Facebook, and of course, decibelwines.com. Use the promo code DBPodcast to receive 10% off your first order. And thanks again to CoreyWine.com. Next week, we're talking with Mike Benny. Gets pretty serious. Pretty awesome guy. Talk to you guys soon.